Welcome back to Hacker Hangouts on a Saturday morning, and we're diving in because one of us is an imposter and one of us is getting fired. Actually, that's not true, but mine is. I was so proud of that thumbnail, and for anyone who doesn't know or hasn't recognized this yet, I had for I don't know how long we've been doing this, 2 or 3 years, I've had one face for Gowrie. That was it. Every single thumbnail is the exact same face. And then recently, I've gotten like three more from him. And it's amazing because now there's so much variety and they work for everything. And it's great.
Yeah, I went to a conference, some tech conference, and one of the booths hired a professional photographer. So while everyone's there getting like boss man pictures, they all walk up in their suits and they cross their arms. They're like, "I'm a serious business person." I walk up and I'm like, "I'm letting my hair down and flapping it out," and the photographer's like, "Yeah, baby, give it," and that's where that picture came from. And of course, I show it to Silk, and Silk's like, "Yoink, that's going in the thumbnails."
It's always dangerous when you're like, "Hey, here's a picture of me." I'm like, "Great, this is now mine, and I will put it in the folder."
He's got a special stash of those.
The funny you say that, but to make thumbnails easier. So like, I would love to claim credit for all of the thumbnails for this channel and my channel, but I am not that talented. A guy named Mark does them, and he does a fantastic job. Every time I'll give him like, sometimes I'll just give him a title. Sometimes I'll give him a semblance of idea. Other times I'll actually give him like, here is my idea, go do this. But to avoid work on my end of always going like, all right, here's a face of me smiling. And I only have one face of Gator. I only have one face of you. So I made legitimately a folder of all the angry Silk, excited Silk, scared Silk, and it's just me making stupid faces in front of my camera, and it's just a giant folder of them, and I sent it to him so he can look through them. And it was funny because among this and other pictures I've sent him, he's like, "This is not nearly the most awkward thing I've ever gotten as an editor." And this includes the one where I said something like the I hack naked, where it's just me without a shirt going like this. And that for me was the most awkward picture I've ever sent to anyone in my entire life. My face was beet red for hours on end. All right, jumping into the topic. There have been mass layoffs. Let me actually you sent me an article earlier this week. Awesome. It's great when technology works. Layoffs hit the once immune cyber industry. Also, I love that they just call it the cyber industry. The computery industry. And I'll scroll through the article, but in short, this is the piece I wanted to look at was this Malwarebytes, Fortinet, NCC Group, Rapid7, Dragos HackerOne, Bishop Fox. All of these companies have had massive layoffs. And for the longest time, we've been talking about that the cybersecurity industry is impregnable, or it's non-touchable, and no one will ever get fired. And the funny part is after reading this article, I still believe that, even though the title is mass firings, and I have a couple reasons I believe that. But there was mass firings in the cybersecurity industry, and I want to talk about this in a couple different ways. I think this is an interesting topic because there's why do these things occur? There's like let's say the corporate speak and the industry pulse, because I think it's always smart to have that feeling on it. But the thing I want to talk about is like, it's hard not to look at, Twitter or people, in the industry. And when you see like, for instance, like not a secret, Jason Street said he was let go. And there's that feeling of going like, this is a very talented, well-spoken individual who keynotes conference after conference, and he was let go. What does this mean? And I think we internalize that. And there's like the whole, like, what do you do if you're on the chopping block? What do you do if you get let go? What if you do if you're not one of the ones to let go? And I want to talk about that. So I guess I'll start with this. Gowrie, have you ever been fired? Crap canned? Shoved out the door?
No.
There's other words there.
I'm like going through my entire job history all the way back to when I was 13 and I started. The answer is no. I've never been fired. But that includes, I've never been on the chopping block that way. I've always been able to sniff out when something was going to end well beforehand and make my exit.
So you have been in the position where you go, I'm about to be let go, or I see the writing on the wall?
Yeah, I mean, I see the writing on the wall in the sense of like in a year or two, this is probably going to fail, and a bunch of people will be on the chopping block. I don't see a path to fix it.
Oh,
Let's jump out.
like the company is going to fail.
Not necessarily the whole company, but maybe some subsection of it, and then you have to ask the question like, is this if this project goes under, are there other projects I want to work on? Type thing, right? So no, I have not basically been on the chopping block in that sense. And not
Mm.
only that, I don't think I've ever been in. Yeah, I've never been in danger of being fired. I don't think.
All right. Someone brings up a point, Dave. I'll throw it up on screen. It's
Good
going to go
point.
right across our faces, and then I'm going to move it like down here where I can no longer touch it because of this interface. And I can't read it either. Fired or laid off; those are entirely different things. Yeah, there's riffing or reduction in force. In the we'll say for the category good for the definition in this conversation is fired, laid off. We're talking about laid off, like not you haven't done something negligent. You have not done any rule at the bottom of the firewall to get yourself fired. It's not like negligence or anything like that. It's legitimately we're reducing the size of the company. We're doing this for any number of those reasons where it's kind of outside something dumb you did. And maybe that's even something I don't know why my mic. I'm gonna just keep rearranging it until I get it where it's not like looking weird. I don't know. It's gonna look weird. But for the conversation, it's laid off stuff outside your control. I think for me, I've never been fired. I've never been let go. I have a trouble empathizing. I think that's the word. Putting myself in their shoes of someone who's been through this. And the closest I can come is when I have left a handful of jobs. I have turned in my resignation. But what was weird and what's different in the cybersecurity industry is kind of two things. And I think one relates to the other is we internalize our work, I think, more than anyone else. If you are a teacher, maybe teachers are actually probably the exception to this rule, but we don't leave work at work. Like if I am working a restaurant, I can leave and go home. Here, if I'm working on a problem, and especially I work out of my house, but I go up and I start cooking, I'm thinking of that problem. I go to sleep thinking of that problem. I wake up thinking of that problem. I go back to work working on that problem.
I dream of that problem.
And I think it's really hard for us to put work down. So we become really attached to our work. And I think it's what makes us all really good in our industry is that we're very attached to our work. And I think what happens is when I turn in my resignation or when I've turned in my resignation, it is immediate. It is my resignation. They accept the resignation. And then as your access is pulled, you're effectively cut off immediately. Now, I think there's two reasons for this. One is because you're in a position of security. There's contracts that require it, and we probably need to talk about that. But you are cut off immediately, probably for two reasons. One, for access. Two, because they need to see what breaks from you not having connection so that they have 2 weeks of reaching out to you. But like 2 times I've submitted my resignation, or 2 or 3 times I've submitted my resignation, immediately access is cut off. You're walked out of the building. Like for 2 of them, you are walked out of the building immediately. And then they schedule the exit interview like a week later while they're picking up the pieces. And it is a jarring experience. Like it is remarkably like jarring.
It's funny. It's funny. I haven't experienced that, and maybe it's because I've always given a very long period of notice with the statement that like I'm going to help you transition myself to someone else. And I have never, and this may be the kicker. Like they always know where I'm going next because usually I set things up well enough that like I'm always going to have. So first of all, don't ever quit your job before you have a legal contract signed with the next one. Don't ever do that because you could just end up in a really bad position if they decide to rescind the offer after you put in your notice. But like once you have that, I've left. I haven't been fully cut off, mostly because they appreciate the transition time. So I don't think it's always that way, but it is very commonly that way if you are going to a competitor, for example. So if you were to go from like Facebook to Google, there would probably be, hey, I'm putting my 2 weeks in, and they would probably go cool, go play in your garden for 2 weeks, right? They call it garden leave.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah,
mean,
so haven't experienced that, but yeah.
for me, it was like at General Electric, where we're working on like prototype unreleased devices. We were working on, even though it's not like TS clearance inside the company, it was like highly restricted
Yeah.
technologies, and we're put in a room for that. But it was effectively like, this is our policy for these devices. You can't, if you are no longer an employee, or your contract is ending, it's cut off. Even at our company, like my company, if someone leaves or is let go, we appreciate the transition. But the two reasons we cut off access immediately is, one, we have contract requirements that require that. And two, one of the things we notice is when we cut off their access, we notice like, oh, there's these things that not have broken, but like these things we now need to go, okay, these emails are now coming to them, and now we need to redirect those to us. So it's one of those things, just to capture communication and then control, okay, who's communicating? We got these
Yeah.
messages. These are the ones we have to handle. So it's not even necessarily like malicious, like, oh, they're going to do something malicious.
No, it makes
Nearly
sense.
as much as process.
Yeah, it makes sense. And like you said, a lot of times it's literally just so they can figure out what breaks before they lose access to you.
But like,
Yeah, because I will say, like, with the exception of, colleagues that I very much like and still stay in contact with, the idea that I would field a call after a company no longer pays me, yeah, that's not happening. Like, we could talk about a consulting fee, but if shit broke after my month of warning time, that's your problem, not mine.
yeah, it's like Dave mentions this. I've gotten calls months after leaving for help before leaving, and this is an example. Yeah, yeah. We're also getting this comment, and I want to say, is it? You might be able to pronounce this name. Is it Nickery? I see Paul. Oh, it's Paul. It's just the name's in reverse. Maybe. Either way, or they use their own ID as the service counselor in critical systems. Yes, I've most definitely seen that. But getting calls, yeah, months after leaving, my advice to them is, unless they have a consulting contract in place with you, you shouldn't be fielding those calls. One, from a legal perspective, because if your advice breaks something over there, in theory, you could be held liable for it, because you're now giving advice and managing a system that you no longer have any legal access to hit.
Not just that, technically, you're not really supposed to be talking about company IP with people outside the company. So yeah. Anyway, like, we're getting way off topic.
Yeah, we're getting way off topic. I want to spin back to specifically this piece. The company joins a growing list of Malwarebytes, Fortinet, NCC Group, Rapid7, Dragos, HackerOne, Bishop Fox. What's interesting about this list is, after you sent me this, I started thinking, going, is this actually hitting the non-touchable cybersecurity industry? And I'd actually argue no. It is hitting, sure, it's hitting the cybersecurity industry, but these are not company. Like, I don't know, they don't give necessarily details of the people inside these companies that were laid off. But I wonder, like, all of those companies are ones where cybersecurity is the product. It's not supporting the company. Like, it's not Kroger or Meijer or Target or any of these ones which have a cybersecurity group. It is companies where their main product is a cybersecurity product, where the people are either the product or they're there supporting it. So, like, if you're a marketing person inside Malwarebytes, sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Within Malwarebytes, are you still in the cybersecurity industry? Like, are you still a cybersecurity professional when you work marketing in one of these departments?
I mean, so I'm going to answer that with yes, because if you work for Ben and Jerry's and you're a cybersecurity analyst, your job is to sell ice cream, right?
Yeah, it's to sell. I get it. Yeah, it's to sell ice cream. So if they're a marketing department, their job is to sell cybersecurity. So I mean, I think there is a separation there between, we'll say, people who work in cybersecurity and the cybersecurity companies.
I think what you're saying is that what class, the real question you're asking is, what class of job is being cut from these companies? Is it the engineers? And almost certainly not. Like, that's the thing that I think is being blown up, and that the headlines are getting wrong. They're saying,
it says it in the article. Here it is. However, some of the cuts have been focused on non-cybersecurity roles, sales, marketing teams,
Yeah.
Fortinet focused on sales, business development, channel partners, things like that.
Yeah, but that is really like that's halfway down, right? In the article, they've really buried the lead on that one, right?
Mhm.
Which is it's kind of funny, but like that. So Silk and I were discussing this in our prep for what are we going to discuss on stream, and I was like, is this real? Let's say they even were laying off engineers. Have you ever felt, imposter syndrome beside that you were in danger of being let go for whatever reason, and both of us ultimately came up with the answer no for a variety of reasons. But even in the context of imposter syndrome, like we were both like, at many points in my career, I felt like an incredible imposter. But despite that, I still felt like I was in control of my own trajectory at that company, where I could stay or leave if I wanted, which is really fascinating because most industries I feel do not experience that level of personal security, and that led to us saying we should discuss this on stream.
And I think, oh, change my audio, and it's very loud in my ears. I think when it comes to looking at, I want to say like that feeling, and I think the thing which differentiates it from like, oh, I'm about to get fired, is because it's always what am I accomplishing at my job, even if though I'm not like an expert. And I use like SCADA testing, industrial control systems. It was like before Sully and some of these protocol fuzzing tools even existed. We were like, ooh, here we go, trailblazing the field. Like it didn't, industrial control system testing did not exist. I'm sure it did somewhere else. But when we started at General Electric, like there was no methodologies. There was no like anything. So we were kind of like building it. None of us had any idea what we're doing, but we were able to like articulate what we were doing, present it out to show forward progress. So even if the company was like, oh, this is no longer important, they can pop those people out. I think the thing that was interesting at GE was GE is a company where they constantly move people around purposefully to like round them out. And they had no idea in the cybersecurity industry that no one in the cybersecurity group ever wanted to get moved anywhere outside of cybersecurity. Like we enjoyed that field. No one wants to go over and like learn a new skill. We just want to do that. We don't want to grow up and be managers. We just want to be technical.
Yeah. I have two stories about that. One, my dad always told me the money's in management. And I was like, that's very short-sighted and you don't understand anything about the cybersecurity industry. The money is definitely in staying an engineer as long as you possibly can and just being a misfit. There's a lot of money to be made there. But the other thing was that's why I left the Navy, actually, because the Navy had this. You spent 2 to 3 years at a given command and they would force rotate you somewhere. And it's not like they would keep you in the same specialty when they force rotated you. They would move you from one spot to the other with some understanding that, oh, this guy's a network analyst. Here are the billets he can easily flip into over this spot. But, one of the commands I was like doing reverse engineering stuff. And then the next potential command I would have gone to was most likely going to be a defensive shop where I would have been looking at sensors all day. Like when you spend 2.5 years staring at assembly and then they tell you to go play in the network packet pile again, you're like, no, I think I'll quit. Like, thank you. I want to stay on the interesting side of the house. Not that that job isn't interesting, but it doesn't interest me anymore. And you just get
now
forced
understand
into
the deep magic. I have zero want to go back to the surface level communication.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like that kind of like forced rotation. So that said, from the engineer's perspective, I think it's very dumb. However, taking the engineer hat off and putting the management hat on for a second, it makes sense because you want to build resiliency into your workforce where you can grab from any random pile of people and shove them into a job and say, here, this critical person left, you figure it out. And that helps build that. But for sure, like when you're in the private sector and you just want to stay a misfit security goblin, you can do that your entire career if you want.
Uh,
Misfit Security, Glenn. That's my new band name.
That's a good one. Braden brought up a really good point. I want to dig into it. He was talking about, because I want to get to like why are these things happening? Like, why are they happening in the cybersecurity field more than other ones? And I think he kind of sheds light on it. So I'm going to read this verbatim, and I have no ability to share it out like easily. It was, I don't know if I'll catch a stream, blah, blah, blah. What I do know is, with respect to layoffs in any given hot discipline, pondering their implications in the broader repercussions, it often comes down to money. Yeah, big surprise. In the world of big business, companies invest in what they think will give them an edge in the market. One would think this means an edge in their business space, but it can often mean their marketing. What makes them look good to customers, investors, stockholders. Let me move this on over. For instance, user designer is an example of a hot discipline that exploded in lots of different companies, saw lots of hiring, became hyped as a differentiator, and then saw layoffs. AI is the new kid on the block, and there is going to be the same cycle. I don't see security as different. In all three examples, the core discipline is valuable, and companies will keep a core contingency of staff. But unless the company's product is design or AI or security, the hype curve will run its course. The excess hiring will conclude with layoffs. The piece I pull out of this is companies often hire for the future, and they're trying to because people take even at our company, when we hire someone, it's very rare they come in and they're profitable immediately because we're consultants. It takes 6 months to grow that person into a practice lead and get clients and shift them on over to them and do a transition. So larger companies kind of have to hire for the future. And then if the market changes, they have to adjust.
And that assumes that the individual coming in is even going to be a person that produces direct profit. Oftentimes you have engineers that are like buried in the stack somewhere that don't have a direct top line effect, and they're seen as a cost center. But those cost centers are required because when you abstract out and you look at the bigger macro numbers, you go, okay, like I have 100 engineers and these 10 over here are complete cost center dumps, but they enable my other these 5 to make X amount of money. So it's like very abstract, and where the layoffs land can sometimes just be arbitrary. Like Silk was putting this up oftentimes in terms of hiring. It's like completely arbitrary who gets hired. Sometimes it's completely arbitrary whether or not your resume even gets looked at by a human at all, because you could just get filtered out by the machine and never get seen, right? So you shouldn't put too much stock in that. And it made me realize while we were discussing it this week that, like, unless you're being fired for negligence or not doing your job well or whatever, which we'll discuss this in a second, is really fucking hard to do in this industry. Like, it's really hard to fire anyone for period. But then in an industry like this, it's very hard to fire somebody. So unless you are being fired, the reason you're being let go and being laid off probably has nothing to do with you in particular. And in fact, why you versus someone else probably also has nothing to do with you.
Well, it might even be they look at it and go, because they don't have at this big of a company, they don't necessarily have comprehension of like, oh, this person's more skilled. They look at it, oh, we can save more money canning the person at 200K versus the 150, not knowing that the 200K does 3 people's jobs. And that's the piece is like, oftentimes it is nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the company. Now that doesn't help your feelings or like how you're going to feel when you're let go. But on the other side is that like it's a numbers game oftentimes. And what's really interesting in almost every one of these, we'll say mass layoffs, I think many times as companies want to let go people, like these big ones who know they're going to end up in the news when they make a big move. And what will happen is no one will have any layoffs. And then Apple will have a giant layoff. And then Amazon goes, cool, we can hijack the news and go right underneath them, and we'll let go a bunch of people. And then Google goes, cool, we can do it now too. And I think a lot of industries, and we'll say the post-COVID era, were like waiting to let people go. And like you saw this during COVID when it was effectively like, we've been wanting to let go of this section of the company, but we don't want the negative publicity. So
Yep.
COVID, we're letting people go. And then everyone piled on in that industry. Like there was so much of the COVID, we're letting people go, where there would be like
Oh, and
industries
now
just
it
booming and doing
and they
amazing.
and they point this out in the article. They're like, all of these layoffs could be happening as companies shift and prepare for a recession. We've been talking about preparing for a recession for like 2.5 years now. It ain't happening. It's not going to happen. That's just them trying to save face for whatever reason they actually wanted to let go. A lot of these companies might be looking for a buyout exit or going public or whatever, and they're just trying to shore up their sheets to make the company look more profitable than it actually is, right? They decide like, oh shit, we can end up, we're right now we're in the red, but if we axe this corner of the company, all of a sudden we become in the black, and that lets us hit our IPO goal, and now we can go public. And this is where like the whole impersonal side of business. I often have a saying, when I'm talking with friends of mine that I work with, and I need to switch to business Gowry from colleague Gowry, I go, okay, you are now talking to Gowry the business, not Gowry the human being. Here is my objective view of what I think is going on and what is likely to occur. And now I'm going to take the Gowry business Gowry hat off and put the colleague Gowry on and go, that's really fucked up and super impersonal and inhumane and all these things. But that's what I think is going to happen. And that's oftentimes what's going on with a lot of these companies. Like, I'll bet you half of these companies get acquired in the next year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously.
I would agree. I think, and that's the thing, is it's the easiest thing to cut is go, the company's profitable. We can cut all these, I'm going to use a word I don't necessarily, ancillary jobs, even though there might be critical path, ancillary jobs, because we can always just rehire for them. And I think that brings to the next point is oftentimes it's I said cybersecurity, we take it personally and things like that. And you always go, oh, well, why not me? And I use the example, like when I was at General Electric, we would get like, we'd put a position open. We would get 9,000 resumes in like a week. And then legitimately, you think, what is the easiest way to go through these? And I would legitimately just search OSCP, because I believed in the OSCP. It was like early days when there was no offensive security certs. Be like, cool, if they have that, I'm going to filter it down. So anyone who didn't have OSCP, they might be really skilled. But it was like, cool, offensive security, cool. And then I would get like 600 people. There's no way you're going to look at 600 people. So you'd like legitimately like throw out half of them. And I would jokingly say, I'm going to throw out half of them because those people are unlucky. And I don't want anyone who's unlucky on my team. Like, and it was so, like, again, it sounds like you're being the biggest dick about it. But like, how else do you sort through, like, to give interviews to 500 people when your core job is not to give interviews, it's to do your actual work?
I like I was bringing up that story with an old buddy of mine, and I told him exactly that anecdote, and he goes, "Oh, that's just how government hiring works too. Like, the government hiring system is totally arbitrary. Unless you write your resume exactly to the specification on the job thing, your shit goes straight into the circular file. Like, because you need to hit that. It's just like, I think it's like extremely qualified, most qualified, qualified. Like, if you don't hit the top qualified area, you're dead, right? Like, anyone who hits that area is in the group that can actually be interviewed. So unless you write your resume, which goes into the machine, yeah, like we've talked about this before. Like, it's totally arbitrary. It's made up, and the points don't matter.
Yeah, and so I'll flip to like what my ultimate point of bringing this up was. It is twofold. One, there's what that feeling is after you get laid off, but then what can you do to get hired? And we did a whole stream on it, but my point is, like, I had someone call me saying, hey, I submitted my resume through the thing, and they did the legwork to go through LinkedIn to get a resume on someone on the team, and they ended up finding my manager at the time, and then the manager handed off the resume, say, hey, this person called me, they submitted their resume. They were one I would have never seen, but because they called immediately, it was like, cool. They've done the legwork for me, because if they were articulate enough to ask for an interview and get it, thank you for making my job easier. And we ended up hiring her. She was amazing.
That's like one of my best tips to people. Like, I am open to help anyone for whatever reason, for whatever task, whatever it is. But you have to come ask me. Like not just like if it's feasible in person is best because out of sight, out of mind. But if you don't do that, the likelihood that I'm going to remember that you need something is like zero. I got too many things to do.
Mhm.
So it comes, when you're applying places, it's the same thing. If you walk into a place and you're like, I'm about to cause you a problem, but also here's the solution. It's me. I'm your solution. Like that comes across as like, oh, this person actually gives a shit. We should really consider them. Right.
And I think
So
there's that spotlight principle that we all have where it's like, oh, I'm the main character. Like, I mean, not in the bad way where like Reddit is like, I'm the main character where it's like a TikTok dancer like dancing in the middle of like the grocery store. But like,
yeah.
everyone has that feeling that there's this giant spotlight on them. Like if you're in the grocery store and you let out like a giant fart, like you assume everyone is going to look at you. And in that case, they might actually look at you. But I mean, like if you're like, oh, I'm wearing a shirt that's too tight, everyone's going to look at you. Like, no one cares because they're more worried about themselves because they're thinking the spotlight's on them. And when you call someone and whatnot, you think they're worried, they're looking at your resume, and it's low priority. Like it's oftentimes I hate the word busy, but they're busy with their own stuff, like their prioritization.
They're slammed into the desk.
All right. So story time on that one, because I haven't shared that story with you. I know this person will never watch the stream. It's great. Point being is I was at General Electric and there was this person, and we were a very small team. This person was tossed on our team who really, I'm going to say, didn't belong. They were one of the people who rotated into cybersecurity, had no idea what it is. Individual was always busy. And for me, this is the thing which had made me turn into like a person who hates the word busy. I'll use prioritization. It's just not a priority right now. It's not that I'm too busy to take it on. I have time where if I can go and eat, I have time. I can eat at my desk and I can do it at the same time. It's just not a priority right now. But they would say this phrase. They would say, I'm so busy. I'm so slammed. I'm getting slammed into my desk right now. I'm just so slammed. And we were in the set. We had what amounts to the best office I have ever experienced because security got their own room. And the only place in the entire building where you could get your own room was one of the wings. And the wings were usually the executive offices. So they built a wall up and it was already you have these giant ceilings in the office where it's not like 10-foot ceilings, where it was like a 30-foot ceiling. And the wing
Wow.
went double that. So it was an amphitheater. It was originally meant for it to sit like 300 people. And it was floor to ceiling glass. So it was like 90 feet of glass, maybe more than that. It was huge. And it was overlooking the lake. So you could walk up. Like it was like the best thing. But there's like 4 of us in this giant area. And you would be sitting there working, like coding on something, doing a pen test. I was doing a lot of like red team things at that time. And I would just hear, I'm so slammed right now. I'm just getting slammed in my desk. And you're like and then the thing which worked, for most time it was just noise. But then I had this coworker who just did this. He would lean out of his cubicle and look at me like, and you're like, does she hear this right now? Like, does she comprehend what you're hearing right now? Like, and I had never like made the connection in my head. And then he made the connection and all of us started giggling every time she's like, I'm so slammed into my desk right now. And just like, stop. You can't say that. HR violations all over. It's been 0 days. Oh, so yeah, it was.
That's one of my favorite, by the way, that's one of my favorite things to do is when people say things that like you can clearly turn into an innuendo is just to lean over to them and whisper, you can't say that. Just so that they make the connection. Like, you can't say that.
And then you tell them, and now they're saying it every other word because now they're trying not to say it. Oh gosh, yeah, that was an interesting experience. Yes, I'm so slammed, just getting slammed in my desk right now.
So in the same context, like, are layoffs coming for the once immune cyber industry? No. What's happening right now is businesses are restructuring and they've wanted to lay people off that are like firing people is impossible. Letting them go once you hire them is impossible unless you are restructuring your business, at which point you can do whatever you want, right? And it's all just a political game. And then, as Silk said, once one company does it, the rest of them go, oh, here's our chance to do it because we won't be the individual bad guy. It will just be a market movement, quote unquote. And that's what happens, right? This is one of the bad things about being in the cybersecurity industry is it is legitimately difficult unless you are at a tiny business to get rid of dead weight. Like if you're in a small business and someone is not making profit and they're just a cost center, it's a lot easier to just be like, hey, we got to let you go.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the numbers, get out. When you are at a medium-sized company and you are established, you have to worry about wrongful termination lawsuits. And engineers are smart, and that makes them dangerous from the perspective of management and trying to fire people. So when a company tries to when it's really hard for companies to fire or lay off an individual, it's much easier for them to lay off a chunk of people together and avoid any of those wrongful termination suits because they can just say, oh, they were downsized, quote unquote, for the office space size, like we're downsizing, or what is your position has been made redundant, right? Or whatever their terminology was.
It would be RIFT, a reduction in workforce.
Yeah, but that's actually somewhat of a negative portion of the cybersecurity industry. Is it is legitimately hard to get rid of somebody who has passed their initial, what is it, like 3 to 6 months trial period and has been accepted. And the only way to get rid of them is to put them on it's called like a performance improvement program, where basically you have to start documenting for like a year just to get rid of somebody who's clearly not pulling their weight, but not being malicious or not being ignorant and not like doing something wrong. They're just not pulling their weight. And that actually makes operating a business after a certain size really hard. And it puts a lot of stress on the teams that are doing stuff because they have to pick up slack for this person who's taking up a rec spot and eating up resources that would otherwise be, allocated to somebody who is pulling their weight.
When I think that's large enterprise. I mean, most small consultant companies, they're at will employee. You can leave anytime you want. I can get rid of you anytime I want. Like, and I'll have two stories on this one, which is you're an at will employee. You can leave anytime you want for any reason, for any or no reason. Like usually that's the legal verbiage, which is for any or no reason. And this is like we've let 2 people go, and I think it's two people go, and one I have come to the conclusion I can't do it. I can't do it. I have a business partner who's really good and very good communicator. He was a professional hockey player and he coached like 12-year-olds for years. And he did it on like the 12-year-olds whose parents were like professionals. So like those 12-year-olds are trying to become professionals to get an education. They weren't probably have any intent or any ability to get on themselves. So like, he's like, if I can cut a 12-year-old from a hockey team while the parents are crying and the kids are crying, then then I can do this. But like, it's one of those things is like, it is remarkable. So like when we had to let these people go, it was like we did it over the course of 6 months. We let them know, we gave them time to find something else. We then let them like, use us, like sign a consulting agreement or a contracting agreement so they could use that to leverage it to get a better offer. Like we did it right. But it is one of those things where it was like, that is remarkably difficult.
Yeah. So Dave said a way to hide the rabbit in the group. That is a really dark way to look at it, though. Yeah, that is a dark way to look at it, in the way that companies bide their time until they can do a bigger layoff to get rid of the problem children, if you will. That's a dark way to look at it, but that's a reality too. Like, because it's difficult to fire people, especially in bigger enterprises, they do that. And they just wait, especially when it comes to like the non-core. We'll say there's there's the core engineering talent in the cybersecurity realm, and then there's the periphery jobs, the middle managers, the marketing, the sales team, all of these people. Those groups are, the periphery jobs. If your product all of a sudden goes south and starts going negative, you can't just fire them because your product's going south. I mean, you can, but again, it's difficult. It's like, who do you decide who goes and who stays, right? They wait for these bigger restructuring events to just chop off an entire arm of the company and keep a lot of the core people, but maybe they let go one or two of the core people who aren't pulling their weight. It's hard, and the worst part about it is often the person making the decision to cut X number of people is like 3 layers above, and then just tells the lower middle managers, you figure out who stays and who goes. And that's where it gets really nasty and really, really hard. But yeah, so are layoffs coming for the cybersecurity industry? No, this is just a market force that's happening all at once. People who are late to the COVID's over party, we need to restructure type situation. I hate to say it, it's probably a lot of the remote workers that there's this massive come back to office thing that's happening, and they're like, fine, let's just cut off the remote workers because we can't see or prove that they're doing anything, and I don't trust people to not just take our money, so get rid of them. It's all of that.
This is the connection, though. Is one the only thing I wanted to go back to something I was talking about was like the two in letting people go. It sucks on all fronts for the team, and you have to be careful. But like they were remarkably talented individuals. They know that and all of that, because I know they do watch the stream, and they're freaking amazing people. I love them dearly. That being said, I think like one of the things you think about is like if you're one of the people who gets ripped to get let go, what do you do? And I think, again, Braden had a great piece of advice here, which was, where was it? Standing still, remembering that talent, good mentors, and a strong network will save you. And I think that's a piece, is like one of those things is early in my career, I often would say like for me, it was like, oh, skill set. I want to improve my skills. And then you realize more and more the things that make me a differentiator are my ability to communicate and my network. Like the reaching out to people. And those are the two things that will get you so much farther, because it's very, very, very difficult to show technical skills during an interview. Even if you do a programming interview or here's the lab, go ahead and break it in and tell us how you did, is having a good network and having friends you can reach out to in other industries and other people, and the ability to communicate are huge differentiators for getting hired.
Yeah, and what to do when you get laid off, especially as a group of people. It's a publicized layoff. I would just market yourself to the direct competitors of these groups, or see where people are going and see what other people are thinking. Like, who was it? Dave said, was it Dave or was it Nick Techry said they were lucky to never have to hunt for a job? Yes, I'm kind of the same way, but oftentimes the hunt for a job thing, I've never really had to hunt for a job, because I could just reach out to my network and be like, who's hiring, right? And then it's a matter of, holding out your hand and figuring out who puts the most there. Maybe I'm a little spoiled in that aspect. Have you had to go job hunting in that aspect previously?
I think for me, it would be like my first job ever. And I think you need a job to get a job. And that's the first one's always the hardest. Like that, I would say, like straight out of college, I found a place. I hated it and despised it. And it was like I was there for like less than 90 days. I've talked about it before. That was the year I missed DEF CON. I was pissed about it. And then I found something else. And then I was there 6 months. And I was there 6 months because I found something. It was out of PA. It was doing a lot of things I can't talk about. And then after that one it was a short-term contract. And that's when I jumped to GE, and then I jumped into consulting. So like I jumped around early in my career a lot. And after I did that, at this point, I never really had to go job hunt. It becomes easier and easier as you're in the industry longer, or for me. And I think the other piece is you eventually you do get to that point where like, okay, if you have contingency and you have people you can reach out to. You go, okay, if I was let go, you get that better of like, is there writing on the wall I should pay attention to? And then
Yeah.
who like example today, like say you're like, hey, I'm done. How many people do you have in your head that you could call immediately and say, okay, I could get a job here, here, here?
I always like to think of it like this: the best way to, or the best time to hunt for a job is when you don't need one,
Mm-hmm.
because then you don't have to take whatever comes along and then keep. It's really hard when you don't have a job and you need a job. I say this not having ever experienced this yet. Hopefully, knock on. What is this? Fake wood. That's hard, right? Because you're dipping into savings and stuff like that. But if that's why I always tell my managers, I always tell people that I work for, even if we're on good terms, even if everything is going swimmingly, never presume that I am off the market. I am always on the market. I am always looking for opportunities, and you should be too. And that is putting gallery, business gallery hat on for a second and just be like, I am in the business to make sure that my life is as good as possible first. And that includes my family and my friends and everyone around me. And that means I will make the best business decisions for myself, and then take that off and put colleague hat on and say, but I will let you know when that happens. Like it will not be a complete slap in the face, and I'm not going to ruin your business.
I think, well, someone brought up a question in chat at Daniel. I'll throw it on up here, which is, so what do you do if you're just out of college, just got laid off from your previous job, not a lot of experience and no way to build up a network? I think, so my business partner who is, we'll say in sales, even though he's like chief client officer, I've never seen him sell anything in my life. I've known him over a decade and I've never actually seen him sell, because what he does is it's business development, it's relationships, it's listening to what the problem is and then formatting a solution to it. Me and him work really well together because I'm really good at coming up with solutions and he's really good at listening. I think with something like this, you go, okay, what do I do? And I think, how do I build these relationships? I think it's much simpler than, okay, I need to network on LinkedIn. I can honestly say I don't use LinkedIn. I don't know who uses it. I think the people who do use it and post a lot on it, oh gosh, I'm going to put myself as a target. I think they're probably full of themselves and don't like, I don't care. It's all noise. And I think
there was a recent, can I add something in there?
Yeah, go
There was
for
a
it.
recent thing about LinkedIn that I really latched onto, and it is a giant blog spam website of companies trying to make themselves look good, share feel good stories. And the fact that they expect the posts of engineers, the post of anyone leaving a company to go somewhere else is like really gross. Of like,
It's
oh, I
so
spent 8 years, and I did something like this, but like I spent 8 years at blah 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 company, and it was a wonderful journey, and I love everyone that works there, but it's time for a new thing at this new company. And the fact that you're somewhat expected to do that every time you switch jobs, and the idea that you would ever put a negative post on there, like LinkedIn is a toxic positivity sinkhole. In that
but
sense, like you are
it's
not
not.
allowed to be negative on LinkedIn, period.
Hold on. It's not when you say a positivity thing, it's not like good, good vibes. Good vibes feed into good vibes. Someone positive. This is shown in science. It's shown in over and all. Someone being positive and excited and shoving energy. I've seen it with you, and you've seen it with me at DEF CON. DEF CON is a place that runs you down because it's just exhausting, and Vegas is gross and all of that. But one of you having more energy and pushing the other forward feeds into good things. This is not a gosh, there would be a word for it. This is not a bucket of joy and whatnot feeds into each other. It is a lie. LinkedIn is a lie. Like, and it drags you down. Like, I don't even log into it ever. So I'm going to spin us back to the point. I don't like LinkedIn. I don't like any social media.
So.
This doesn't count. This is a shameless excuse to hang out with all of you in gallery. Twitter I use like once a year for DEF CON, and then that's it. And then all of a sudden I go, I what was that? Oh yeah, X. Sorry, Twitter. Oh, my bad. My fault. Entirely my fault. I should have specified.
Apologize to Elon.
But I don't. Building that network is not LinkedIn. It's like Discord. It's like if you wanted to get a job as like a pen tester, legitimately go find fun and interesting Discord communities and then post it on there. Like legitimately, I think someone jumped into like our. I'm gonna again. This is about. I hope this is not insulting to anyone who's on it. Like our rinky-dink, small. It's intimate. There we go. That's the word. Our intimate Discord community. Link in the description below. Like we have a small Discord community. It's not that active.
Dude, there's like 200. Dude, there's like 200 people on there. I don't know what you're talking about. That's like a lot of people for a tiny ass channel.
It's freaking amazing. I love that fact. But the thing is like someone posted a job offering, and then like I know they got like 2 DMs immediately, or not a job offering, saying, "Hey, I'm looking for a job." And like 2 people were like, "Hey, yeah, absolutely. I'm sending you the thing right now." And one of them I know is completely self-serving because they get a referral bonus if that person gets a job, which is great.
But it's also fine. Like, hey,
it's great.
Money's money.
And I think that's like, that's how you build your network. Is not like, okay, I'm going to go network with people and make connections. No, it's like actually relate. And this like, it took me so long. It took me an embarrassing amount of time to recognize what networking is. It is not, I'm going to go network with other professionals at a BPA or a business association BS. It's legitimately, I am going to join a Discord community, see who's there, talk about interesting things. And this is like the phrase you have to keep in your mind. Do good things for good people over the long term, and good things will happen. This like exists in everything. Do the right thing over the long term, and good things will happen. Find good people and do cool projects, and cool things will happen. Like do DEF CON. Find cool people and do cool things, and cool things will happen. Like the whole vibe thing feeds into itself. I truly, truly believe that. So that is how you network.
I hadn't really thought about it, but I do have like there's a couple of Slacks I'm in. I have my own Discord, private Discord thing, our Hacker Hangouts Discord. There's a few other spots that like, if I probably went to all 5 or 6 of these different chat rooms that I'm in, mind you, not LinkedIn, not like a social media thing, it's just basically chat rooms, and just be like, I'm on the market, who's hiring? I would probably have like 6 DMs. That's me, right? But like, even if you're a junior person, you could probably do that. Like if you hung out in enough different area, we'll say specialty Discords, IRC channels even, and just, spun. I hired a guy off of Freenode one time because I had a conversation with him about, this is IRC, right? I had a conversation with him about doing some kernel work, and he helped me debug something. And once we were done having the debugging talk, I went, "Hey, do you have a resume?" And then he ended up working with us, and he's a fantastic human being. I absolutely love him.
Look, and flattery can go a very long way. And I say that mainly because we hired someone who reached out to me on Discord and said, "Hey, I just watched your video. It was really awesome. You mentioned that you own your own company. Are you hiring?" Absolutely. Interview set up like 2 days later. Like legitimately, we were getting resumes. We signed up for one of the like school things, like get new people applying and all of that. And they were all trash. They were all trash resumes we got. And we got his resume, and it wasn't. I take that back. For him, we didn't even get a resume. He didn't have one because he had 0 experience in the cybersecurity industry. Like think about this. He had everything against him. He had no resume. He had 0 experience in the cybersecurity industry. The best thing he had going for him is he's like, I have dorked around and hacked the box and try hack me. And then I talked to him and I did a video chat with him. And he was super articulate, super friendly. But the biggest one I looked for is he fucking loved cybersecurity. He's like, this is like, if you want to go like if you want to impress the person you're interviewing with at a good company. I'm not saying like a big enterprise. Enterprise interviews suck. I'm sorry. They do unless you find the right person. You want to impress them. They are looking for your passion and they're looking for your projects. He went off for like 40 minutes on like the different Docker projects he was spinning up. He's like, I spun up this and I spun up Plex and I spun up like Sonar to feed into this. And I set up a Ubiquity network and I set up this and Kubernetes something, like legitimately just blew into his passions. And it was the coolest thing to watch. And it was like, yep, cool. We're going to give this person a try, even though we've never done this before. Oh, it's awesome. Passion will go a long way. That is a great way of saying it, Dave.
So Natekri said, I met y'all at DEF CON this year. It's my first time in 10 years. I found it really hard to meet a lot of people. Everyone was moving and on a mission. Yeah, that's DEF CON. Everyone's moving and on a mission. If you actually want to sit down and meet people, there's a lot of micro, we'll call it clicks. DEF CON's become very clicky in some sense, and there's obviously some crossover. The longer you go, the more you meet people, and the more, we'll say, I'll put it this way: our darknet clique, eventually a bunch of them went to become goons, right? And some of those goons work in HHV, and some of them work in dispatch, and some of them work. And now our network, our tiny little network in darknet, has become a bigger DEF CON network, where we're starting to find all these other cliques and cross the streams, if you will, and it's fun. But all of that was in the context of sitting down to do one or two things and actually get good at something that we were doing at DEF CON, whether it was making content or playing in the game itself, and you start to meet these communities. So if you're going to DEF CON with the intent of kind of moving around and seeing a bunch of stuff, it's going to be hard to meet people in that sense, because yes, the vast majority of people who go to DEF CON are seeing it as an InfoSec conference, and they want to see it, they want to see as much as possible. They're going from talk to talk, and those people are not really there to engage with DEF CON that way. What you need to look for is those handful of things you really want to engage with for an entire day. And if you sit down for an entire day and engage with one thing, you'll find the other people that are doing that one thing and start to, break that barrier of, hey, who are you? What are you working on? Can I join you? Can I play the game with you, or whatever? Or we're playing against each other. Oh, that was a really cool challenge. What did you guys think about it? Blah, 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 blah. And it might take a year or two to really crack into those communities. But at least that would be my recommendation. If you're going to DEF CON to meet people, it'll probably take you a few times, and you should try and find one or two things you want to do and sink your con into that.
Yeah, we've talked about this 90-10 theory I have, and I think I still stand behind it, which is 90% of the people are just there. It's an InfoSec conference, and then 10% are like, this is my community. And we used to say, like, your goal is to find your tribe. Your goal is to find your tribe, because there's tribes ever at DEF CON. I think I'm stepping away from that. I'm pedaling that back. No, your goal, if you want to have fun at DEF CON, if you want to go beyond, if you want to just do information security conference, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with any of that. For me, if you want to have fun, your goal is to find your in on that 10%. And it's not that there's gatekeepers like saying, oh, you're not part of the 1%ers. You're not part of the 10%ers. No, it's difficult to find them. Like,
well, that, and we're all shy nerds for the most part. Not everyone, but a lot of us are shy nerds.
The 10% is pretty easy to identify. Here we go. It's like, 10% is pretty easy to identify. I just find a spot at a table, open my toolkit, and like flowers to a beat. This is yes, right there. The other easiest way to find these people is in the contest area. 100%. Anyone competing in a contest in the contest area. I'm not talking about CTF professional. I'm sorry. Those people are professionals. You don't touch them. You don't take videos of them. You don't talk to them because they don't want to be talked to. I've tried. You go to like TF2 or Scav Hunt or like I feel like, again, Scav Hunt I always talk about because I love those people, is you go to any one of these contests like TF2, Darknet, Scav Hunt. Those are the ones. I mean, it's not that there's other contests there, but those are the ones which, like, you need other people to play TF2. Scav Hunt is I'm sure is very fun as an individual. I know people have done it individually, but the utterly ridiculousness that it requires will be more fun with two people. And here's the thing: is you as an individual, not knowing anyone, you can go up to any one of those places and they can help you get plugged in easily. Scav Hunt will say, there's like 8 teams. This team is right there. Hey guys, scav hunt points, like bam, like go join them. Have
You're on
fun.
their team there.
You're on their team now. You are now on my team now. Like, this is how you find these people, and you will have so much more fun at DEF CON, I think, with people, with fun people. Fun people do fun things over the long term, and you will have a fun time. It works there too. Like, I don't know. I could talk about DEF CON forever. But I think the win tends to take care of itself. This is a phrase that we do at work, which is like, do good things for good people. The win takes care of itself. And oftentimes this is like, I learned this in business from my business partner, which is do the right. It's not that the customer is always right. It's nothing like that. It's actually like the employees are the ones who are going to be sticking around for a very long time. It's self-serving in some ways. It's like employees doing the right thing and loving their job and whatnot makes them stick around longer, and it results in good things. What are you going to say? You're about to jump in.
I want to pick one little thing on you. Say, do good things, do the right thing. Doing the right thing often includes for yourself too, right? So like, don't be a work martyr. Don't martyr yourself for someone else's business. Don't martyr yourself for somebody's product. You got to do the right thing for you. And if that means leaving, despite the fact that it'll hurt the team or hurt the company or whatever, that's not your problem. Your problem is to take care of you first, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you are not taking care of you, you cannot take care of anyone else. You will eventually destroy yourself that way. So don't be a martyr. And don't, so that is the one caveat I'll make to what Silk is saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'll double down again. I speak for my own business. No one will care more about my business than me. It's my business. I've dedicated my whole life to it. I've done all of that. And if it ever gets to the point where an employee cares more about my business than I do, my gosh, am I doing it wrong? Like, I think
it's horribly wrong.
Something is horribly wrong. But yeah, I think what you're saying is I think, and there's that suffer in silence thing which goes on, and this can happen at time to time, is that despite remarkable success, especially as a consultant, and I look at these teams which had a bunch of layoffs and things like that, is especially working remote. And as a consultant, some clients have crappy cultures. Like just some people you work with. I'd say I'm speaking over my entire 20 years of being a consultant. Some clients have awful, awful cultures, and they're set a meeting at like 8 a.m. on a Monday morning or at 5 p.m. on Friday, which is like unheard of. But as a consultant, you're like, oh yeah, I have to take that, especially when you're an early consultant. You're an older consultant, you go, piss off. I'm not joining a call at 5 on Friday unless I absolutely have to. But you internalize that, and then all of a sudden you have this crappy culture infecting you, and then you have work, and you like suffer in silence. And especially if you work remote, no one else on the team is aware of the crap you've done, like you're working on. Like there's been times, legitimately, I've called my business partner. I'm like, hey, I'm working 15 hours a day on this thing to get it out, like to get this thing out and done. He's like, cool, what can I help with? What can I do? Nothing. I'm just complaining so someone else knows the pain I'm going through right now. And I think that's where burnout starts happening. It's like, despite remarkable success, you can feel like you're failing because you have all these outside entities.
We had a saying in the Navy, a bitchin' sailor is a happy sailor. It's when they stop complaining that you have to worry, because that's where something really wrong is starting to happen. Because when someone feels comfortable enough to complain about all the things that are wrong, and something is always wrong, just to be clear, there is always something to complain about, right? That's how you know when there's a real problem. There is always something to complain about. Either the code is shit, or you're having a little tit for tat between engineers on a design decision, or whatever. Doesn't matter. Or the company just switched their healthcare plan and they don't like the new one. Doesn't matter. There is always something to complain about. There's always something that could be better. And if you have an employee that's just like, nope, everything's great for 6 months straight, everything's not great.
Yeah, they're
just not telling you what's wrong.
I think I love when someone's bringing up problems. I'll be honest, like when someone's not when they're, I will say when they're bringing up problems and have solutions, that is like the ideal. But I've said this before, it's like, as goofy as this sounds, I fear the good employee, because The great employee is doing good things, and they're doing great things, and they're sharing their passion, and they're fixing stuff and everything like that. The bad employee is the one who's like is you can get rid of them. They're a suck on the culture of the work. They're sucking all that. The good employee is the one who's just doing their work, just doing that, not communicating, but they're doing enough to get by, type of thing. Because it's hard to work. It's hard to work with them. I love the great employee is the one who's sharing their passions, sharing their complaints, saying how much this thing sucks, because all of a sudden we have an ability to improve. So I don't know. I just double down on the if you're sharing your opinion and all of that. I think that's freaking awesome, especially complaints, but also bringing solutions. Like I think that is a big one.
All right, are we all being laid off, Silk?
No. I honestly think that security is still like there is massive problems in the cybersecurity industry which no one can get fired for. Like here's a big one. Like I'll throw it out here as like pen testing, specifically pen testing. There is a fundamental flaw which pisses me off and drives me nuts, and this is why methodologies are so important. Think about it this way. I can put my 6-year-old daughter in front of a computer and say, go ahead and do a security assessment of this application. And she's going to like roll her face across the keyboard for 4 days. And like, I don't know what she would do at a computer, probably like type and somehow like format the machine. But like, guess what? At the end of, and then I'll go, don't worry about writing the report. I'll write the report for you. And what did she find? Nothing. What does that mean? It's 100% secure. There's no vulnerabilities. There's no vulnerabilities in it. And here's the thing is you deliver that report to the client and guess what the client says? Oh, this is great. We have no additional work we need to assign to engineers to fix. This is fantastic. Not only do we not have to fix anything, but we don't have to assign additional work. And then it goes to the compliance person. The compliance person says, did we do a pen test? Yes, checkbox. The pen tester, it is impossible to get rid of red teamers because they can do so little work and make such an impact. It's amazing, but it's also kind of concerning. Same thing on the fundamental red team thing. You have to find one vulnerability. Blue team, like it's like the IT person. The IT person legitimately can go and sleep and do nothing. And it's everything's running, and everyone, they never do a great job. They do it's all up and running job. And then when something happens and something goes down, all of a sudden now they're the worst IT person ever. Like, there's so many fundamental flaws. IT, it's concerning. Cybersecurity, I don't see how no, we're not being laid off. We never will be. We're protected forever. No one is ever getting laid off, ever. That's what Gowrie is saying. If you do get laid off, call him.
Oh, goodness. Yes, my number is 555. No. I don't have much more to add to that, to be honest.
No, there's a lot.
Wrap up for the week?
Yeah, I think we wrap up. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you have any closing thoughts, Gowrie, before we close on up here?
I think you know what? No, layoffs are not really coming for the cybersecurity industry because, as always, everything is broken always and forever. The end. So there's something always needs a fixing or a breaking.
And despite all of these layoffs, we have 80? What was it? 80? There's some massive percentage of openings.
Oh no! It is only in the cybersecurity industry. Only 69% of jobs are filled. Nice.
Yeah. It's like so there was math in my head. 31% deficit. Is that right? Yeah. 31% deficit in jobs. We have a negative unemployment or a negative employment in cybersecurity. Yeah, Daniel, that sucks, man. I will say, don't internalize it. No, it's not even it's not easy. He got laid off from his IT job. It's not about you. It's not about you. Yeah. It's about the company driving profits. Thank you for helping the company drive profits. Like that, it's terrible, but like that is kind of the mentality. Join security. Join the dark
And I'll
side.
say this: if I can give one piece of advice, it's time for the next ride in the amusement park. right?
Yeah.
So I just look for your next adventure. It's gonna be tough for now, but that's the, just go look for the next fun thing.
But thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out with us. Hopefully the discussion was, I don't know, somewhat interesting and therapeutic, because it is a shameless excuse to hang out with all of you. Thanks for watching, and hack on.